Hello fellow gardeners, I hope you're doing well. Welcome to this new video where we're going to dive into tomato cultivation, from seedling to harvest, including pruning with 3 methods tailored to the variety. I hope you enjoy this video and, most importantly, find it useful for your garden. If so, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and leave a comment to let me know, for instance, if the AI translation is on point or what cultivation guide you'd like to see in the next video. Let's jump right in. Happy watching. 1. Presentation. The tomato is a fruit vegetable belonging to the Solanaceae family, just like potatoes, eggplants, or peppers, for example. There are more than 3,000 varieties, which can be classified into several categories based on their growth habit, size, color, earliness, whether they are heirlooms or hybrids. Determinate or indeterminate growth. Most varieties have what is called indeterminate growth, meaning their growth will continue indefinitely if not stopped. Therefore, they will need pruning and staking. On the contrary, determinate varieties, generally dwarf and compact varieties, will naturally stop their growth, usually after 3 or 4 sets of flowers. These varieties won't require staking or pruning, except for the removal of suckers. Heirloom or hybrid varieties. Heirloom varieties. Their fruits are more or less irregular, their production is generally lower than hybrids, and they are more susceptible to diseases, but often yield fruits with superior taste. Hybrid varieties, F1. Hybrid varieties are relatively recent, as they have only existed since the 1960s, with the creation of Montfavet 63-4 and 63-5. They result from a crossbreeding between 2 heirloom varieties of pure lineage. The production is higher than heirloom varieties, the fruits are more uniformly sized, they have better disease resistance, but the taste of some varieties may sometimes be lacking. Early and late varieties. Early varieties will produce fruits before others, as their growth cycle is shorter. They typically yield small to medium-sized fruits. Conversely, late varieties will produce fruits later in the season. There are also varieties known as semi-late or semi-early. The ideal is to plant early, semi-early, and late varieties to stagger your harvest throughout the season. However, this is all theoretical because, depending on the year, some varieties labeled as early may produce fruits after those labeled as late, and vice versa. 2. Soil and exposure. The tomato will adapt to various soil types, ranging from light alluvial soils to heavy clay soils. However, it prefers deep, light, slightly acidic soils rich in organic matter or humus, and most importantly, well-drained. As tomatoes originate from tropical regions, they require a warm and sunny environment. They are sensitive to cold temperatures and will be destroyed if the temperature drops below 36 degrees Fahrenheit. Ideally, tomatoes need a temperature difference of 50 degrees Fahrenheit between day and night to grow and fruit optimally, with daytime temperatures around 82 degrees Fahrenheit and nighttime temperatures around 64 degrees Fahrenheit. However, new hybrid varieties can tolerate different temperature ranges. That's why, in our climate, field cultivation is only feasible during the summer months, from May to September to October. 3. Seedling. Different types of seed sowing. Seeds should be sown in soil with a temperature of at least 61 degrees Fahrenheit, ideally 68 degrees Fahrenheit, which is rarely the case in our climates at the time of sowing. The simplest solution is to sow seeds in pots, trays, or containers, which can be kept in a heated, well-lit room or a greenhouse. There are also small greenhouses a few dozen centimeters in size, and some even come equipped with heating and lighting. Indoor tray sowing. This method allows for sowing a large quantity of seeds in a minimal space, saving time and space. However, the time saved during sowing will be spent during transplanting since each young plant will need to be transplanted individually. Pot sowing. This method avoids transplanting, saving time and reducing plant losses due to the stress of transplanting. The drawback is that you will need a lot of space right from the sowing stage to store your pots. Sowing time. The sowing date will depend on when you can transplant your seedlings into the open ground. It usually takes between 1.5 to 2 months from sowing to transplanting into the open ground. In the southern regions, it will be possible to plant in the ground from late April to early May, so you can start sowing seeds in February to March. For the northern regions above the Loire River, tomatoes will be planted in the second half of May or early June, after the famous ice saints, so sowing will take place in late March to early April. Of course, if you plan to protect your young plants from the cold, it will be possible to slightly advance all these dates. After seeding care. Regardless of the chosen sowing method, the growing medium should always be kept moist until germination. Mist spray every day or as soon as the surface of the soil starts to dry out. After germination, water without wetting the young plants, which can be challenging for tray seedlings where there are plants everywhere. One trick is to water through capillarity, by placing a plate or container with water beneath your container with the young plants. This way, the water will be drawn up into the growing medium from the bottom, and you won't wet your plants. Transplanting. The purpose of transplanting is to encourage the development of new roots and prevent the plants from growing too tall and becoming leggy. It is carried out approximately 3 weeks after sowing, when the young plants have produced 3 or 4 leaves, not counting the cotyledons. Like sowing, there are several methods for transplanting, but the simplest method, even though it requires time and space, is pot transplanting. Regardless of the chosen transplanting method, the procedure remains the same. 1. Prepare as many pots as you have plants to transplant, creating a hole in the soil with your finger or the tip of a pencil. 2. Cover with soil up to the level of the cotyledons, encouraging the formation of roots along the buried part of the stem. 3. Gently compact the substrate around the plant with 2 fingers and add soil if necessary to remain at the level of the cotyledons. 4. Water immediately and avoid exposing your young plants to direct sunlight during the first few days following this operation. 5. Ensure that your substrate remains consistently moist without becoming waterlogged. If you had directly sown in pots, a trick is, after thinning and keeping only 1 plant per pot, to press the seedling down a little by pressing the soil with your thumb to make it descend. This way, you can add soil up to the cotyledons. 4. Planting. Planting should be done when the risk of frost is no longer a concern, and the average temperature is around 59 degrees Fahrenheit. Typically, this is around mid-May, after the ice saints, but this date can be adjusted earlier in the south or if you plan to protect your young plants from the cold. Ideally, planting in open ground should occur before the plants start flowering, which is why there is no advantage in sowing too early. A few days before planting, it's beneficial to acclimate your plants by gradually exposing them to conditions similar to those in open ground. The planting distance should be approximately 23.6 to 31.5 inches in all directions. Avoid planting too densely, as overcrowding can lead to diseases, such as mildew, due to poor air circulation and stagnant humidity between your plants. 1. Start by digging a hole about 11.8 to 15.7 inches in all directions, then loosen the bottom of the hole to encourage your plant's root growth. You can also mix some well-decomposed manure, potting soil, or special tomato fertilizer with the excavated soil. Alternatively, you can place chopped nettles at the bottom of the hole. As they decompose, they will fertilize your soil and fortify your plants against diseases. 2. Soak the seedling in water for a few minutes before gently removing it from the pot. 3. Place the root ball at the bottom of the hole. You can cut the cotyledons and bury the stem along the violet and hairy part. These hairs will later turn into roots, making your plant more vigorous. Also, set up the stake if you are planting indeterminate varieties. 4. Pack the soil well around your plant and create a basin to collect water from watering and rainfall. 5. Water generously and ensure that the soil remains moist during the recovery period. 5. Maintenance and care. Staking. For indeterminate varieties, you'll need to tie the plants to their stakes as they grow, using twine or raffia. Be careful not to tie too tightly to avoid injuring the stem. Ensure that the stakes are tall enough because, for some varieties, especially older ones, or in regions with a longer favorable climate, plants can exceed 6.56 feet in height. Defoliation. It involves removing a part of the plant's foliage. This will help tomatoes ripen faster by promoting better air circulation and light penetration, especially for varieties with abundant foliage. However, be cautious not to remove too much, as the leaves provide the sugars needed for tomatoes to grow normally. Typically, defoliation begins towards the end of the season to accelerate the ripening of the last fruits. During growth, focus on removing dry leaves and those lying on the ground. Risk of diseases. Mulching. Installing mulch at the base of your tomato plants will be beneficial for several reasons. Firstly, it will limit the growth of weeds, and secondly, it will maintain a certain level of moisture in your soil, reducing the frequency of watering. Mulching with black plastic film will also result in earlier tomatoes and slightly higher yields. Suckering. At the axil of each leaf, shoots will appear as the plant grows, which will either produce flowers or leafy branches, suckers. It's essential to remove the suckers as they unnecessarily draw energy away from fruit production. You can easily identify them as they grow diagonally between the main stem and a branch. Small suckers can be removed by hand, taking care not to tear the skin of the stem, while larger ones may require pruning shears. Irrigation. Proper watering is essential for the success of your cultivation. It should be done at the base of the plant, taking care not to wet the foliage, as this could promote the development of fungal diseases such as mildew. Ideally, watering should be done in the morning, but if that's not possible, do it in the evening. Avoid watering during extremely hot parts of the day. Use ambient temperature water if possible. Watering should be done regularly during dry weather to prevent the onset of certain diseases like blossom end rot. Conversely, excessive watering can lead to the development of diseases such as gray mold. Ideally, the implementation of a drip irrigation system is recommended. 6. Harvest and storage. The harvest usually occurs between 4 and 6 months after sowing, depending on the earliness of the varieties and the climate. A tomato plant can produce an average of 4.4 to 13.2 pounds of tomatoes, depending on the varieties. Hybrid varieties often have a higher yield. Tomatoes picked at full maturity can be stored for about 10 days at around 41 degrees Fahrenheit, while those picked while still green will keep for approximately 1 month between 53 degrees Fahrenheit and 59 degrees Fahrenheit, during which they will complete their ripening. Normally, tomatoes should never be stored in the refrigerator as it removes all their flavor. 7. Pruning. There are 3 ways to prune tomatoes plants. Method 1. Pruning to a single stem. Pruning to a single stem is the most well-known and widely practiced method. 1. Trim the suckers as they appear at the leaf axils. 2. Allow about 5 or 6 floral clusters to form. This depends on the varieties and climate. For example, you can go up to 8 clusters for the black Krim variety, until October and even later in the Mediterranean region. 3. Finally, trim the stem above the last floral cluster that you believe will mature, generally the 6th. There's no need to let the last flowers develop into fruits that won't ripen, as they will deplete the plant and delay the ripening of previous fruits. Variation 1. Pruning on a single stem with 2 generations of 3 floral clusters. First generation. Cut the stem above the 3rd floral cluster. Remove the suckers except for the one located at the leaf node just below the last cluster. This sucker will provide the extension of the stem. Second generation. Pinch the suckers from the new extension, and cut above the leaf located just after the 6th floral cluster. The subsequent flowers do not ripen well in our climates. Variant 2. Pruning on one stem in 3 generations of 2 floral clusters. 1. Cut the stem above the second floral cluster. 2. Remove the suckers except for the last one located at the leaf axil just below the second floral cluster. This sucker will form the extension of the stem. Second generation. Repeat the same operations on the new extension. Third generation. The third and final extension undergoes the same treatment. Remove the suckers. Additionally, cut the main stem above the leaf located just after the 6th and final floral cluster. Indeed, the subsequent flowers wouldn't have enough time to yield ripe tomatoes in our climates. Method 2. Pruning to 2 stems. This pruning technique is suitable for high-yielding varieties when early ripening is not a priority. Step 1. Trim above the first 2 leaves. 2 side shoots will develop from there. Step 2. The 2 side shoots have developed into 2 main stems. Remove the side shoots on these 2 stems and cut above the third cluster of flowers. Leave the side shoot just below intact, as it will give rise to a new stem to prolong the growth. Third step. Lastly, we cut the stems above the 6th cluster of flowers. You see, the next flower generations won't ripen in our climate. Remove all those suckers. Keep in mind that this pruning can be simplified. You can just let the 2 branches grow without pruning until the 3rd cluster, up to about the 6th cluster. Then, snip the stem since the following flowers won't produce ripe tomatoes. Method 3. Pruning to 3 stems. This pruning method is suitable for highly vigorous and productive varieties for which early ripening is not a priority. First step. Cut above the 3rd leaf. This pruning will lead to the emergence of 3 shoots that will form the 3 stems. Second step. On these stems, remove the side shoots and cut above the 3rd flower cluster. Be sure to leave the shoot located at the base of the leaf beneath the 3rd cluster. This shoot will extend the stem. Third step. Finally, remove all the side shoots and top the plant above the 5th or 6th cluster. Tomatoes from the subsequent clusters may not ripen in our regions. Note that this pruning can also be simplified. You can choose to let the 3 branches grow without pruning until the 3rd cluster, up to approximately the 6th cluster. At that point, prune the stem since the flowers that follow are unlikely to produce ripe tomatoes. Here, on the screen, you're looking at a massive tomato plant grown in China. In fact, under ideal growing conditions, tomatoes are perennial plants that can thrive for years. If you have a heated greenhouse or a sunroom, you can definitely give it a shot and try to keep a tomato plant alive from one year to the next. This video is now wrapped up. Thanks for sticking around till the end. I hope you liked it and, more importantly, found it useful. If that's the case, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the thumbs up to motivate me to keep translating all of my French videos. Also, drop a comment letting me know if the AI translation is on point or not. Catch you in the next video, friends. Goodbye.